This video will contain territorial Rotbart-sized spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and its story expansion, Torna The Golden Country. If you have not played either of these titles and do not wish to be spoiled, then go dump over 100 hours into them, and then you can come back and watch the video. If you have beaten the games or don't care about spoilers, then welcome. Let's dive in. In the course of a lifetime, a man will see uncountable meetings and partings. Yet, as your life candle sputters and dies, whose face is it that smiles to greet you? Happy is the man that can sleep in the comfort of the smile he sees then. These words come from a man that lost his way in the events leading up to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and they beautifully sum up his character arc. Xenoblade 2 tells a complete story of self-discovery and working towards a better future, but there's a history that paints a darker past of the world of All Rest than players might see with their playthrough. Many characters and cutscenes reference a cataclysmic war that took place 500 years before the events of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which marked the end of an era of prosperity and the destruction of 3 titans. All of this is depicted in the story expansion DLC to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, known as Torna The Golden Country. Torna was officially revealed via a trailer on June 12, 2018 during Nintendo's E3 presentation. When I originally saw the opening scene's art style, I didn't expect it to be news concerning the next form of Xenoblade content. I must have somehow missed the fact that the Praetor and Indol were mentioned, because I didn't realize it was the official reveal of Xenoblade's story DLC until... Once the boys in black showed up, I knew we were in for a treat. Torna was slated for a release date of September 14th, 2018, but I'm a bit of a collector, so I had to wait until the 21st for the physical release. That was one hell of a week, let me tell you that. But some might ask why Torna is even necessary, since Xenoblade Chronicles 2 mentioned the events that took place 500 years ago, and players already knew the results due to the base game. I think this raises a good question, which is, how do you make a strong prequel? Examining the entry as simply a game, a solid prequel should expand upon the gameplay elements of previous entries to make a smoother experience. I won't lie, I'm a sucker for prequels, and 2 games I believe nailed this formula are Halo Reach and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Just as a heads up, I'll be referencing these games, but I don't plan on discussing big spoilers. Halo Reach offers players new movement abilities such as sprint, jetpack, and evade, a plethora of new weapons, and the new and improved Forge mode, which allows for insane levels of death. However, I believe the most important factor of a successful prequel is the ability to further explore characters and the world without contradicting the pre-established aspects that fans enjoy so much. Metal Gear Solid 3 in particular manages to give characters from prior games a reason for acting the way they do or existing in a certain place and time. For example, Big Boss from Metal Gear 1 and 2 is known to be a villain that holds this obsession with an endless war cycle and says he wishes to give soldiers a place to thrive. But in Metal Gear Solid 3, he's an absolute goofball.
Snake, what are you doing?
I'm in a box.
A cardboard box? Why are you...
I don't know, I was just looking at it, and suddenly I got this irresistible urge to get inside.
So then the audience is presented with the question, how did this pretty happy, innocent guy turn into the villain we know from entries that come later chronologically? Big Boss is given a reason for his change in outlook, and Snake Eater, being a good prequel, gives the audience questions and more substance to work with. Much in the same vein, Torna offers to the Xenoblade series structurally sound gameplay and expansion onto the world of All Rest. Just like my previous video about Xenoblade Chronicles 2's success at being a sequel, I'd like to discuss gameplay elements before moving into the characters and story, since I believe those are some of the greatest strengths of the series. With that said, let's jump straight into Torna The Golden Country. Xenoblade Chronicles games are typically split into 2 main forms of gameplay, which are combat and exploration. Starting with exploration, Torna doesn't have nearly as much to explore as the others due to its smaller size, which restricts you to Gormod and Torna. Returning to Gormod is actually quite interesting because of the layout differences that exist due to the 500-year gap. The large, bustling village of Torgot from Xenoblade 2 is practically gone and replaced with a smaller settlement, which I believe carries more emotional weight due to it being a graveyard and story significant to Laura. As for the Titan of Torna, the environments are quite varied, ranging from the typical grassy area to a smaller desert. I'd say the one disappointing absence from this expansion is the lack of those real spectacle environments like Satoral Marsh and Mount Valak from Xenoblade 1, or Uraya and Morifod from Xenoblade 2. A majority of those areas I mentioned usually have a drastic change that occurs at nighttime, and Torna doesn't exactly have that. However, the area where Torna really pushes the boundary for a Xenoblade title is Aresco, the title's main town hub. Aresco might not be the biggest urban area in the series, but I believe that's why it's so strong. Instead of putting an emphasis on size or spectacle, Aresco strives to establish memorable landmarks, create NPCs with intriguing stories and quests, and I mentioned previously that some people referred to Torna as the Majora's Mask of the Xenoblade series, and I believe Aresco is one of the main reasons people conclude that. As for the combat, I believe Torna's battle system is the best the series has ever seen. Much like Xenoblade 2, the battle system revolves around using different blades in an encounter to take advantage of their arts, stacking orbs on the opponent via elemental attacks, and using chain attacks to destroy orbs and extend the duration and damage. However, Torna not only takes the best aspects of the base game's combat, but adds incredible quality of life changes that make combat feel more seamless and better suited to Torna's pacing and overall shorter runtime. Some of these changes include being able to directly control your blades, orbs can be achieved through level 1s and 2s instead of only level 3s, which allows for faster stacking, and my personal favorite, the Vanguard switching mechanic, which allows you to switch between your driver and blade mid-combat. The active switching also serves as an art that can inflict a reaction like topple or launch. You can even switch between the slots when you feel your health is getting a little bit too low. This small addition keeps the flow of battle constantly moving and really engaging since you're aiming not only for the attack cancel with the Vanguard switch, but a possible secondary effect. Not to mention each switch has this unique animation that makes battle feel so lively. Just look at how cool some of these are. If we're gonna have future Xenoblade combat based off of any system, this would be my personal pick. Okay, I've been holding off for too long at this point. Let's talk about the soundtrack. Hot damn is it good! There's a couple returning favorites like Drifting Souls, Where We Used to Be, and Counterattack, but the new songs feel right at home. The opening title theme is an incredible piano piece that illustrates the somber tone of Torna, and honestly on par with the previous entries. If you want some more energy, then it has you covered. Torna aims for this jazzy styled soundtrack, which is quite refreshing and gives us great tracks like Torna's Nighttime theme. And the battle theme, good grief! This is a normal battle theme, people! There's a couple songs I'll refer to later, but for now, the last song I really want to mention is Aresco's Day and Night theme. As usual, each version conveys a different tone and emotion, but they're also incredibly effective in making the town give off this very warm and welcoming aura. As strange as it might sound, the music almost made me feel more of a connection to the area and want to do quests. Of course, this isn't a result of just the music. Touching back on gameplay, Torna's method of side quests is quite different than its predecessors. The game is a community system, which revolves around completing a number of quests to unlock the next level on the chart. The best way I could describe it is like a mix of the development mechanic in Xenoblade 2 crossed with the NPC affinity of the original. The central complaint about the system is that it is mandatory to reach level 4, which is a pretty hefty amount of side quests. Since I picked up the game a week later, I had heard about the mechanic, so I focused on side quests as I went along, and that made the experience fairly smooth. However, for those unaware of the community system, or those interested in simply wanting to do the main story and that's it, then this progression block later in the game could be seen as a great nuisance. This is where I think it becomes difficult to balance. On one hand, these side quests prove as a method of building a connection to the town and civilians of Aresco, since there's some really charming quests in here, such as reuniting the two guard brothers, the inventor and kid whose machines can only do one job, and the Great Tornate Cook-Off. But on the other hand, side quests for the most part should likely be left as the name implies. Returning back to the subject of Majora's Mask, I think that if the side quests had been handled much like this title, then people would have less complaints with Torna's system. Majora's Mask is filled to the brim with side quests, but a majority of them are not mandatory for progression. Yet the NPCs have this quirky design and charm to them that entices you to assist them in their troubles. The Zelda title also tempts you with the prospect of a usually helpful reward, be it a health upgrade or a mask, which makes the player more inclined to search out side quests. Is this a perfect solution? No. Was I bothered by Torna's mandatory side quests? Not really, but I understand where the frustration comes from. I think it's best to view them as a pick-your-own adventure at the end of the game. Aside from the NPCs of Aresco, Torna really stands out because of how much attention it puts into developing its main characters. Torna's main cast consists of a colorful and diverse group of characters, much like the base game, but I think I actually resonated with this cast a bit more. Starting with the Emperor Morardain, I found Hugo to be more interesting than I originally thought due to his ability to relate to Adam in their view toward royalty and being men of the people. I also love how his voice line that triggers upon unlocking a new Infinity skill is parallel to Morag's line.
This is the culmination of years of training.
The culmination of years of sovereignty.
Hugo's presence gives way for Aegeon to get more time to shine as well. Bridget is also a returnee from the base game, but I feel that she doesn't get as much focus as a result of runtime and for the other characters to get proper development. If you remember Cole, the playwright from Uriah in the base game, Torna gives us the chance to see him in his prime, known as Menoth. Cole used to be a blade of the Quester Malfish, just like how Malus is now, but since he's been changed into a flesh eater. However, the destruction following Malus's awakening and Amalthus's hatred of humanity disgust Menoth, and he avoids his old driver. Menoth joins the party as a blade using the dark element and has his cool pseudo-cowboy design with his gun, knife, blade things. A gun knife wielding man with dark powers and a big face scar. Doesn't that sound like...
As if.
Regardless, Menoth is a pretty cool party member, and I wish we get to see a bit more of him in action. I really want to talk about Hayes though, who was a character that I considered to not have gotten the proper exposure they deserved in the base game. As a result, I felt that Hayes' death didn't have as much of an impact because of her smaller role in the story. Yet Torna, as a logical prequel should, makes me better understand the magnitude behind her demise at the hands of Jin. Hayes can't even fully comprehend the reasoning behind Jin's proclamation of freeing her since she lost her memory when returning to her core crystal. In Torna, we get to see this kind, eager girl who lives a happy life with her family, and then it's stripped from her in a flash to be given a new identity as Fan Lenorn and made this false goddess and servant to the Praetor. On top of that, half of her core crystal is taken by Amalthus so he can abuse the power and she can't even remember her original name. Hayes gets absolutely horrible treatment constantly, and the fact that she can't even remember her relationship with Laura is just heartbreaking. As for Adam, it's no wonder that Zeke thought they were actually blood related, because every comment about his goofball personality is applicable to Adam. Like, at first you have this stoic, cloaked badass, and then the next moment...
I really, really like you two.
That mouth is unnatural and absolutely terrifying. But Adam just oozes this aura of charm, which is actually shown in game by the popularity he has amongst the people of Torna, and their wish for him to ascend the throne. However, Adam just wants to live a simple life as a farmer. I have a bit of a soft spot for the characters in nobility that partake in lifestyles or behaviors that subvert usual tropes of royalty. I find his overall design to be incredibly strong as well, and representative of colors I associate with Torna. Adam gets his fair share of serious and funny moments, like his duel with Malos or his intense struggle with Mithra.
Hey, wait a minute. Calm down, both of you. Ow! Come on, take it down. No!
But he's also a good role model, as seen with the paternal relationship he has with her. I had mentioned previously that I didn't have the best first impressions of Mithra from the base game, but man does Torna sell me on her character. Mithra's role in the expansion is serving as the Blade of Adam as they journey to defeat Malus and cease his destructive rampage. From the base game, we know Mithra as his character with a snarky, cold exterior that begins to warm up the Rex in the group as the game continues, but dear lord does she get roasted non-stop by the entire party in Torna. Even the menu doesn't let up, like look at that!
Oh my god.
The duck's burned! You're cooking in a burnt pan, you
Simpleton!
While I found these moments to be pretty funny, I think Mithra really shines when we begin to see her fear settle in near the end of the game. I'm going to touch on the scenes that I believe effectively showcase her character development later, so for now I'd like to take a look at the stars of the show, Laura and Jin. From the first couple interactions, I knew I liked these characters. The early cutscenes do a very good job in establishing their relationship and how they both depend on each other for support in combat and their personal struggles. They even share the same weapon because they didn't have enough money to buy two, so they just adapted. Not only does that give more meaning to the new Vanguard system, but it helps to show how in tune they are. Laura was originally a character that we knew very little about in the base game, but Torna really sells me on why she meant so much to Jin, and why Jin traveled down the path he did following his transformation into a flesh eater. Laura's pseudo-death scene in the base game is given much more weight as a result of the extra development of her character, and this is where Torna really succeeds as a prequel. Laura climbs from somebody struggling to a Torna knight, which makes her eventual downfall hit that much harder. I would say that the only drawback to the major characters in Torna is that we don't get to spend as much time with them as we do with those in Xenoblade 2. Nevertheless, the moments that we share feel as if they really are this ragtag group that is united under a common goal, but growing closer beyond the mission as the journey continues. I think the shot of everybody sitting at the campfire embodies this feeling and is one of my favorite small details of Torna. It also makes the story moments in the later half of the game that much more impactful. Much like the base game before it, Torna starts off fairly calm, but it really begins to start ramping up with the first encounter with Malos, where he exclaims that his goal is to return the Tornan Titan back to the primal state by destroying the seal. This is the battle the story has been building towards, so there's a lot of stock put into this moment. In normal Xenoblade fashion, everybody is screaming out their attacks, which can overshadow the music, but the song that plays during each Malos encounter, known as the Acting God, I think is one of the best songs in Torna for musical and storytelling purposes. The song has a really strong acoustic guitar and violin that gave me vibes of Dark Pit's theme from Kid Icarus Uprising, which is always a great thing, but I could tell there was something else. It took me a bit before I realized that the Acting God was actually a remix of a Maleficus battle theme from the base game. This remix is fantastic because it opens a unique creative spin on a pretty memorable song from the base game, but reinforces the relationship between Malus and Amalthus. We're shown examples of how a driver can have an effect on the behavior and look of a blade they resonated with, such as with Laura and Hayes, but even recalling back to Xenoblade 2, Klaus mentions how Malus is a processing unit and is driven by the will of Amalthus. While Malus is the boss that the player has to currently fight, it's Amalthus who is the one responsible for the chaos of the Aegis War. Malus is tough to pin down because he's evil and chaotic, but that's only because he was corrupted in a sense. And we've seen in the base game how Malus can be understanding and humane with his behavior towards Jin and his final words to Rex. I think this all comes down to making Malus a really strong character and adversary in Torna. Not to mention how intense and funny he is to watch due to David Menken's spot-on voice acting.
Show me what you got, Mithra! Do it! Make me proud!
Following the battle, we're treated to a really well choreographed scene that showcases Adam and Mithra's new weapon switching trick and the group's ability to work together. I also love this moment between Adam and Malus because it's intense but collected and witty at certain intervals. It's like they're just having this casual conversation in the middle of a battle.
And you don't understand what humans are.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hey, Johnny, what's up?
I have a problem with Lisa. She said that I hit her.
Following the encounter, Malus flies off, leaving the party some cleanup to do and some time before the final battle. During this time, Malus takes the seal, Laura becomes the Torna Knight, and the group puts together some last-minute preparations. It all comes together in the final confrontation with Malus, where the first phase serves as an amplified version of the previous encounter, and the second phase manages to parallel a lot of aspects of the final battle against Ion in the base game. Artifice Ion plays in the background, and you even get to use the artifices in combat, which is pretty cool. However, victory here doesn't necessarily grant a happy ending. The conclusion of the battle is right about when Torna really starts to take a turn for the worse. When you hear Drifting Souls, you know something bad's about to happen. Malus destroys Arsco, which sends Mithra into a blind rage that unlocks the third sword. There's this incredible moment where Adam can't handle the power and has this sense of befuddlement in his voice. I think it's at this moment where he's helpless to stop Mithra's rampage that he realizes that for the first time, he can't handle what Mithra holds, and fear begins to settle in him. In the brief scene that Adam did appear in Xenoblade 2, he mentioned how he was afraid of the Aegis' power, and I believe this is the scene where it's fully realized. Also, did anybody notice how the sword shocks Adam much like a certain red blade electrocuted wielders it did not accept? This might be a bit of a reach, but if that truly was a reference, then yeah, Dixon, you were right, Dumban really is a beast. Regardless, the two Aegis duke it out, and we get a sequence where Malus has some of the best line delivery, but the voice of Mithra, Sky Bennett, absolutely kills it with what little dialogue and voice work she has. That cry in particular gave me chills, even in the trailer when I didn't understand the context, but it really cements that she's abandoned most semblance of reason. Following the ensuing battle, Mithra receives a vision of a familiar face from 500 years in the future, which serves as a cute reference to the foresight ability we've seen before. Mithra slowly lets out, "I just want to save," which I've seen interpreted in several ways, such as it referring to Rex in accordance with the vision. I think it refers rather to Mithra's inability to stop Malus destroying the town, and all that weight is falling on her at once. It's as if all her bravado is a shield that's finally broken, which has left Mithra herself driven to the brink. Malus is overwhelmed by Mithra's awakened power, which sets the stage for his quest for full restoration in the base game. Following Malus's defeat, we're hit with an onslaught of bad news. Hugo died shielding Adam from the explosion of the Titan's core, which resulted from Mithra's attack. Torna has been lost and has begun to sink into the Cloud Sea, and Milton was killed embracing Mikhail in the blast against Aresco. When Mithra sees Mikhail and Milton and runs over to check on them, she gets turned away like a monster. If you pay close attention, you'll even see Adam running to intercept Mithra before reaching them, almost as if he wants to stop her, but is either halted by fear or a realization that there's no reason to. Small details like this are wonderful and really give life to these kinds of moments. All of this paves way for what might be my favorite moment in all of Torna. The way Mithra stumbles back like she's lost, only for Adam to catch her, and there is no eye contact, no discussion between them. Honestly, the facial expressions alone create this noticeably tense and emotional feeling that illustrates an understanding of exactly why Mithra locked herself away and created Pyra as a separate self. This was the scene right here that fully convinced me on Mithra's character after my lukewarm reception of her in the base game. Following the chaos, Adam departs to the Spirit Crucible Elpis with a recognizable character, and Laura and the gang run into a prototype Blade Eater birthed from Gort. The party defeats Gort, and then they begin to reflect on how the world's strife and troubles might eventually cease one day. The credits begin to fade in, but some of the dialogue in the sequence is important and incredibly painful, knowing the fate of all these characters following Torna's conclusion. Small lines like Laura saying, "Things can change, there's always hope," is multifaceted in the fact that it's hopeful since one day Rex and his group will work towards bringing about a new age, but it hurts the players since we know Laura will never get to see that day. And right on that bittersweet tone, a moment of eternity kicks in. This song echoes the title screen theme and is beautiful, and has this air of confliction to it. The introduction and its timing after Laura's show of optimism led me to believe that the game will conclude on a positive note. But hold up, you thought this would be happy? Nah son, this is Torna! Alongside the calm tone, we see Amalthus' schemes come to fruition as he slowly climbs up the Indolent ranks to the position of Praetor by assassination and poison, with it ending on him looking at the mural of Alrest's creation with a mischievous smile. What this credit sequence does is set the stage for the events that lead to the start of Xenoblade 2 and how each of these heroes have suffered in some fashion. The only character that seems to bear some semblance of happiness is Amalthus, the primary antagonist of the main game, which leaves the players with a feeling of melancholy. Adam reflects on the loss of his homeland as it sinks below the surface of the Cloud Sea, and Amalthus initiates the attack on Spezia, and an attack to wipe out the Aegis, which ultimately leads to Jin eating Laura and becoming a flesh eater. While it does not show the attack scene that was featured in Xenoblade 2, the small amount they show is enough. I think the most heartbreaking aspect of this moment is knowing how Hayes will become practically enslaved to the will of Amalthus and will not have the opportunity to retain her memory like Jin did. Before fading to black, the scene pans up to the world tree, almost as if a reflection to the cutscene where Amalthus asks if this is the world the architect intended. What follows is the biggest section of the credits where Jin burns the past memories and moves on with a faint glimmer of hope that he can see Laura again. I think it's this moment in particular that really establishes Jin as the deuteragonist of Torna and strengthens his character in the main game since we're able to see the immediate effects Laura's fate had on him. I also want to call attention to the lyrics of A Moment of Eternity as well, since they have significance for Jin's scene in particular. The lyrics are almost meant to be for Jin and come from Laura. Give this certain section a listen. Won't You Show Me That Smile is made to parallel Jin's desire to see Laura smile again one day, and that someone that will help you move on is likely referring to Rex, giving Jin a reminder that there does exist that spark of hope that he had before becoming a flesh eater. Drawing a connection to another game I previously mentioned, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater uses the same idea by making the lyrics sound like the boss is addressing Naked Snake directly. It's a really smart way of giving a song more meaning with the narrative itself in a manner that might not be noticed immediately. Just as the music winds down, the scene takes a dive into the Cloud Sea, into a familiar looking ship, where the hope of all rest first kicks off the events of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and thus, boy met girl. Hey there guys, I just wanted to say thank you for watching the video and I really hope that you enjoyed it. I put a lot of time and effort into making this the best that I possibly could in order to give Torna the appreciation it deserves. If you did enjoy, then feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe as it really does help out. I also really want to say thank you so much for all the support on my previous video and the channel in general. It was honestly overwhelming how much love and support you guys gave, and when I posted the video, I only thought that a handful of people would watch, but it's done so well and past every expectation I could have had, and that's all thanks to you guys, really. I wasn't able to respond to everybody, but I love reading the comments and talking with you guys about the series that we all love. After even speaking with a couple people, I now have a desire to go back and replay X with this different perspectives, so yeah, that's good news. As for future videos, I think this video essay or discussion type is probably going to be the format I stick with. If a big direct or gaming news comes up, I might make a short video like some of my previous uploads, but the main focus is definitely these discussion videos. I have a few ideas planned out about Xenoblade especially, as well as some of my other favorite games, so hopefully that's something to look forward to. If you guys have topics you'd like me to talk about then feel free to post them in the comments and I'll be sure to check them out. Again, thank you guys so much, and until next time.